This is what I call my ripple pendant. It's one of my favorite pendants to make, and I wear this style a lot. It's big and bold because it's made out of thick gauge aluminium wire, but of course you can make it very dainty if you use 20 gauge 0.8. But I'm going to show you this big bold version. And you can see these different styles that you can sort of jazz it up and make it very unique. It's a little bit wonky, which I love. It's tribal. It's got that sort of, handmade look about it. So I'm using 1.6 mil soft aluminium wire. You can use slightly thinner, but I like that chunky gauge. And I've got some 0.4. And it's for your focal bead, it's better to have a sort of a flat sort of bead, something that's a little bit flat, or you can glue your focal bead to the wire. So I've got a big, I suppose it's about 5 inches of aluminium wire here to start with, and I'm just going to straighten and work harden the length so that it's not going to misshape as I use it. So get a length like this, about 4.5, 5 inches, straighten it, and then just hammer the center area of it. And the reason I'm flattening that area out, that's where I'm going to sit my bead. Because the wire is so thick, I can't thread it on, so I'm going to wire it on to the center. And if I hammer this area here, I can wire it on, and that will act as a backing to the bead and won't move around so much. So you can see I've flattened that area out, and that's where my bead is going to sit. So you work out which side of the bead you're going to fit on. I'm just going to wire it on with this 0.4 mil thin gauge wire. So this is just to hold it in place. And start by securing it at one end, where you've just above where you flattened it. So just wrap the wire around the just above the flattened area and make sure there's no spiky ends showing, and then you can thread the bead onto that wire. So this means you could put a row of beads. You don't have to find one flat bead. And of course it does work with a rounder bead, but if you have a rounder bead, it can move around too much. So a flattened bead means it sits well. So wrap it round to secure it in that place. And if you've got wire left over like I have, and the bead hole is big enough, you can then go back through the hole just to give it extra security so that it cannot move around and it's really sort of nice and secure and in place. So I'm just feeding it back through and wrap around again, cut off the end, and now I'm absolutely happy that this bead is fixed to the place that I want it to be fixed, and there's the back. So it can't move around. So the next bit is the ripple effect. So I'm going to cut about an arm's length. I know it depends on the length of your arms, but it's better to have too much than too little. And I'm going to start off by just making a very small circle. The circle should be large enough for the main stem wire to thread through. So just make sure it'll fit through, not too loose, and then just bend it to a right angle because we want it to sit above the top of that bead and hug the side of that bead. You see, you just want to mold that wire so that it sits and hugs the side, so one side of the bead. And then hold it where you want to wrap it and wrap the wire tightly around just at the other end, the tip of that bead, and then you're going to bring it round back to the opposite side so that it's completely framed by this 1.6 aluminium wire. As I say, you can use a different gauge of wire, but this one is nice and chunky and gives a nice statement sort of necklace look. Now we're going to make another this other side, and we want to leave a little bit of a gap. So I'm using my finger to sort of just round off that wire so that it looks like it's flowing a bit. I don't want too many angles in it. So, and then just gauge a little bit of a gap and then wrap it round again, the opposite end. And then for the other side again, get that rounded look to the wire and then wrap it round again. And basically that's really what we're doing until we use up all the wire, or until you're happy with the amount of sort of halos that you do around. And all the time you're just trying to keep a little bit of a gap. We don't want them to sit right close together. So it's really important to get that little bit of a gap. And I'll go one more time to finish off there. So you have to always hold it where you're going to wrap it. Right, and I haven't got enough to go to the next side anyway, so we're going to leave it there. It doesn't matter that there's 2 wraps on one side and 3 wraps on the other. I always think it's something about handmade jewellery. It's got to be a bit wonky. It's definitely not mass-produced in China or wherever, India. So I'm with that little tail end, I'm curling it into a spiral, which gives another added decorative detail. I'm just going to leave it there for the moment because the next bit I want to do is to hammer those ripple wires. So we're going to need a steel block and your whammer hammer, just the planishing steel end. And we're going to begin, just make sure, just put it on the very edge of your block so that you can access, I keep my finger over the bead so I don't smash the bead. I'll hit my finger before I hit the bead. But I want to flatten and spread the wires so that it's got this nice sort of, I don't know, metal sheet look rather than round wire look. And it gives it a nice sort of tribal, I don't know, a tribal look to, or tribal effect to the jewellery. So don't worry about leaving marks even, because texture is always good. In fact, we could texture it with a planishing end after we flattened it, and that also gives a nice sort of sparkly result. So you can just, if anything's moved or it needs a bit of more, adjusting, do it now. And I'm just getting my little planishing end on my whammer, and you see the ball peen part of the hammer, and just give it some dapping or dimples in the flattened wire. That just sort of adds another bit of interest to the piece. So just follow all around the flattened areas of the wire, and you can do that. It obviously, that's not mandatory. It's up to you whether you want the texture or not. So there we have that sort of nice flattened look. Now we can I'm just going to flip that spiral that I made up, because it's going to sit and flatten near the bead. And then we've got to make a bail, the top end where we're going to hang it. And what I like to do is to flatten that area just at the top of the bead, sort of about, oops, I had that too loose, the nylon head, so I'll just put that back on. Flatten and spread again that area just above the top of the bead. And you can see there it's nice and spread, because that will make it look better for a bail. And because it goes with that sort of chunky look of the whole piece. I'm just going to push it forward, and then with my bail making pliers, or you can use a pen or a pencil as long as it's cylindrical, you just fold it over to create that loop, and then with the excess just bend it where it meets the top, and you can just bring that little bit of extra wire or excess wire around, and that will just hold and close and secure that top link into place. So I'm just going to cut off the excess because it's quite thick wire. I can't really keep wrapping it, it's just too bulky. So I only want a small amount to flatten around the top, and that will be enough. So that gives me a nice looking veil for the top. And then all I've got to do now is the base, which I think I'm going to suspend something from. And also that thickness at the top means you can put a chain, you can put a cord, you can put a piece of leather, you can put a ribbon, you can hang it off anything. It's sort of all in line with the sort of chunkiness of the piece. So I'm just cutting off a little bit at the end because I got too much, and I'm going to form a link at the base because I want to suspend a little dingle dangle, something decorative off the end. So there's my link, and I could put a bead, I could make some wire feathers, I could, you could suspend anything from there, but I'm going to make this is a little shape I like to make. So I'm starting off with sort of like a head pin, squeeze that doubled wire together, and then I'm making a spiral. So I'm holding the wire and bringing it round and round itself. So that creates a little spiral. And then I'm going to position the tips of my chain nose pliers just underneath that spiral, leaving a gap, and pull the wire to create a little triangle, and then bring the wire around the top of the spiral and hugging the side, and then I'll place the tips again where that point of the triangle is and make another point and bring it round again. And I'm going to do that one more time, and again hold it and make another. And I just love this shape. I don't know why it's elegant, and it's just different to a spiral. It's very nice actually. This particular shape, this sort of dagger shape, is particularly nice for earrings as well. So now I've left enough to create a link. So I'm going to roll my wire up and around until it sits at the very, very top of the piece I've just made. And that can be my suspension link. And I'm just going to give it a little tap with my hammer just on the sides, because I don't want to spread the end point, because otherwise that takes away from its elegance. So it's just work hardening it a bit and spreading and work hardening the center spiral bit. And there we have it. Just open up the link and connect that in and attach it to the base of your pendant, and they've got a nice sort of silvery drop that now all you have to do is put it onto a chain, a cord, piece of leather, and there you have it. It's ready to wear. So I hope you enjoy making these ripple pendants in any gauge wire, and just have fun creating wire jewellery. Thank you so much for watching.